Welcome back to the podcast where every car tells a story. That's right. This week on To All the Cars I've Loved Before, we are a show. It's always a little quart low on gasoline, and we are sluggish in the winter. This is To All the Cars I've Loved Before. Oh, cue the sound of the engine starting and the cool music. We have to give a shout out to our audio engineer who makes us sound lovable and amazing. Believe me, we're the opposite in real life. Welcome back, America and planet Earth. We are, again, through the magic of the analytics, and I will leave that to my partner in crime, the tech master, Mr. Doug in the corner on the turntable. We continue to be heard around the world, downloads around the world, follows around the world. Thank you. And this is an interview show. So if you are in Asia, Africa, Europe, it does South America, Canada, it does not matter. You are welcome. This is your show where we will talk about your experience and your past through cars. Also, as our very special guest today like to put it, I've never heard it put this way, life lessons through cars. And even though our motto is every car tells a story, that could be a secondary motto. As mentioned, let me toss it over to my esteemed co-host, Doug. Good afternoon, partner. How you doing?
Hey, doing great. Great to be back with you.
So what are we seeing in the numbers and what are we seeing in the trends for analytics before we bring our special guest into the conversation here?
Yeah. As you mentioned, we've got as far out as India.
Oh, that's new.
Europe. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Saudi Arabia. Whoever you are in Saudi Arabia, we love you.
Come on.
Tell your friends.
That's right. So again, and to get involved, please follow the show, download the episodes, reach out to us. And by the magic of the internet, believe me, we can get anyone who wants to be involved on the show. We know this through the magic of analytics. So, so what's new on the blog? What's new on the website?
Yeah, so I introduced a new blog, set it up, one entry so far. Christian, you'll be the second one. Just wanted to give our viewers, listeners, I should say, background into what the inspiration of the blog, or actually the podcast was. And Christian, you're really a big part of it. So not going to give it away, but check out the blog, send us some notes, tell us what you think. Christian's going to put in his take soon. And
amen. One day I'll have to learn how to work the keyboard, but yeah, for sure. And then what'll be fantastic is bring everybody into the conversation here and on your streaming platform of choice, you can find us. Doug has us propagated everywhere. So, all right. Thank you for that, partner.
Christian, just to round that out, you'll see on our website, carslove.com at the bottom, all the platforms that we're on. We're on all your favorite Apple, Spotify, you name it, we're on it.
Good point. Lovely. Thank you. Yeah. So let's get the conversation rolling. He is Doug at carslove.com. I'm Christian at carslove.com. Shoot us an email. Let's make it happen. The show doesn't happen without you in so many ways. So thank you for that, Doug. Let's kick it over to I would like to introduce our guest today. Our guest today is a departure from our typical interviewee subject. Our guest today is someone neither of us has met in person, but has been in the public her whole life. Her name is Kat DeLorean. And as she likes to say, a mentor first, everything secondary. But let's mention cybersecurity expert, entrepreneur, automotive entrepreneur, inspirationalist, devoted wife and mother. With a guest like Kat, it sort of blows up our model in the past because normally it's very easy how to approach an interview subject, but with her, she's so accomplished in so many fields. It's how do we even start the conversation? You might recognize her last name. Her father was an automotive executive and entrepreneur in let me see if I get this right, 1950s Packard, 1960s GM, 70s GM, and into Pontiac in the 80s, where he started his own car company. So one could say oil runs in her veins. Maybe her heart is a two-stroke, naturally aspirated model. I don't know. Maybe that's too personal to ask, but it is brought to our doorstep, and we're very happy. Kat DeLorean, welcome to the show. How are you this afternoon?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me. And it's gasoline in my veins. I've always said I was born with gasoline in my veins. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that correction. And as we were talking about at the outset, Doug and I bandy about a lot of, what we're trying to do with the show. And as the show finds its feed and finds its voice, in our show prep, we were going back and forth with you and said that think something that was important to you was life lessons through cars. So could you talk about that a little bit and maybe give us an example?
Yes. So I think the way that I described it was my father liked to Mr. Miyagi me when it came to teaching me life lessons through cars. And he did this by literally sending me out to take care of cars. So he would teach me the value of caring for something that I owned by paying me to go wash the cars. He would teach me the responsibility of having to, let's say, manage not just your own expectations, but understand how everybody else around you impacts what you're doing by teaching me to pay attention to the other drivers more than what I'm doing. And all of these things seem like just basic automotive things. What do you mean, Kat? He's teaching you life lessons from cars. He told you to go wash the cars. He told you to pay attention to people around you. Yes. But when I look back at how he presented these lessons to me and the way that he encompassed them, and I wish I could actually give you a really good example of this, but he did it with that je ne sais quoi, where one day I just woke up and was like, oh, he wasn't just getting me to wax the cars. He was getting me to understand the value of a hard day's work and showing me how to manage my money by giving me a job or a task to do. And he did this, though, even outside of your very basic automotive things. Because he was an automotive engineer, we talked about cars constantly. So anything you can imagine that happened in life, he probably found a way to make the conversation happen by creating an analogy around cars, because that's what I understood.
I like that. And I can see Doug kind of chomping at the bit, wanting to get in here. But one thing that you wrote that I wanted to say is the life lesson through cars. I remember when I was learning to drive as a teenager in my father's 1980 Chevy Citation, which was, I wasn't getting any dates in that car. But I remember very specific life lesson. I hadn't thought about this in decades, but I remember sitting on a hill. And one of the hardest things to do with a standard is to start it from a dead stop on a hill. And we were stopped at a red light, and I was supposed to, not stall the car, progress it. And not only did I have to do that, but there was kind of a ditch in front of the road. It was a T. I had to go right or left. And so my father was kind of a brilliant college professor who didn't suffer fools. He showed an unusual moment of patience with me. And he said, "Hey, son, this is a baptism by fire. The car is lining up behind me. You have got to put this. You've got to not stall this car. You've got to put it in drive. You got to go right. You got to go left. And you can't put us in the ditch here. Baptism by fire. Baptism by fire." That is imprinted upon me. And that's something you said in our back and forthing before the show brought that back to my mind. And I know Doug wants to get in here, but I just want to thank you for sharing your story and sharing that memory, because it brought that back to me. I had dinner with him just last week in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and I wish I would have thought about that a little sooner. Thank you for that. Doug, what you got, partner? I know you want to get in the conversation. Oh, wait. Kat wants to get in here too. Kat, she's got two fingers up.
Oh, please, Kat.
She's also the guest. So, we let her go.
There's actually, you bring that up, and I've mentioned this before, so Doug probably already knows. He's heard all my stories. But one of the best life lessons I think my dad taught me was when he taught me how to ride a motorcycle. I was very small, and my brother was already cross country racing, and I just looked up to him so much. And I really just always wanted to be like Zach. So I was about 2 or something, and I wanted to ride his little 50 that Zach was learning. And my dad put the kickstand down, and he said, "Learn how to fall off, and then I'll teach you how to ride." I kid you not, I fell off and got on a parked motorcycle and got an injury so bad my knee was bleeding through my jeans because I landed on the toothed kickstand when I jumped off the bike. The fact that I injured myself on a stationary bike just trying to get off, one, was itself its own life lesson. But
absolutely,
once I mastered actually falling off the bike, I was then taught how to ride, and not before. This actually saved my leg when I got into an accident much later, and the bike was going to land one way and I was going the other, and my leg was in between. My reaction was to jump off the bike. So he taught me two things. One, if you prepare yourself to fail, you're going to survive.
Good lesson.
Instead of die or lose your leg. And that it's okay when you fall off. You're going to be okay, as long as, especially if you're prepared for that. So that one thing that he did was such a profound lesson in my life. And that's a good example of how I'm able to look at these things and look back and then say, okay, this had a lot more to do with what else he was telling me than just falling off the bike, which was in and of itself a very good lesson.
Thank you for sharing that. I really like that. And that is something, all things in time, all things in sequence. You can bring that forward in life, forward in parenting, forward in business, and with relationships all around you. What you got, partner? I know you wanted to get in here.
No. I think great story. It's maybe alluded to in my blog, just to add on. So my late father was an electrical engineer, and he worked for Intel Corporation. And I remember being 4 or 7, whatever age, and watching him with his soldering iron. And the smoke was cool, right? Very cool. Next thing I'm burned my finger a little bit. I'm playing with the soldering iron I shouldn't be. And he's like, look, I'm going to get you a soldering iron. I'm going to teach you how to use it. And so I was 7 years old. I had a soldering iron. And fast forward 2 years ago, I bought my DeLorean. Let's just say it needed some electrical work. And I'm in the garage working, and I can just hear my dad talking to me about the right way to do things. He really inspired me through cars, computers. I wouldn't be in the computer world without him. Cars, he was always scared of me doing dumb things in them, but I survived. And like Christian, my dad taught me how to drive a stick shift, but it was actually my own choice. My first car was automatic. I had some friends in high school that had stick shifts. I'm like, nah, I'm going with this. And I was hooked.
Good stuff. Good thing to know.
My dad taught me how to ride motorcycles. So I knew the concept of shifting my whole life. But I had multiple people try and teach me how to learn how to drive stick on various cars. One was a 1987 IROC Z28 with a 200-pound racing clutch. You can only imagine how that fared. Not well. So here I am thinking I don't know how to drive stick. And my father and I used to go to the gym every morning together. And one day we're working out and I said, Dad, when we get home, will you teach me how to drive stick on the NSX? And you heard all the weights in the room drop. And one guy looks over and goes, John DeLorean's daughter doesn't know how to drive a stick shift. My dad packed up all of his stuff and said, come on, we're going. And he took me home. I got behind the wheel of that car. I didn't stall it once. I didn't drop it. I just drove it. And I was like, we should go back and tell that guy I already knew how to drive stick.
You just didn't know it yet. So
I just didn't know it yet.
How old would you have been at this time? Could you triangulate at all when that would have been?
Yeah, I would have been 18 years old at that time.
Good deal.
So, yeah.
So let's take a step back if we can. Now, which was your first car, or would you consider that your first real car? A lot of what we do is to take the guests all the way back to the very beginning. So was there some kind of important moment in the beginning, or your first car, or...
So my first car was a Morgan. No joke. I used to tell people, I had a kit car. And then I posted it on Instagram and somebody goes, that's a Morgan. And then I went, that it is. My first car was Morgan. I was like 3. There's a picture of me in diapers driving this car around our farm. I like to joke that's my first car.
Nice.
My dad traded an old bulldozer. So my first car story has 4 first cars. My dad traded an old farm bulldozer for a 1972 convertible Mercedes 270. And it was this gorgeous blue color, like royal blue with this burgundy interior. He swapped, actually, I think it was a 1970 body with a V6 body with a 1972 V8 he made me a GTO Mercedes, and he gave this to me at 14 years old. He didn't buy it for me because he traded old farm equipment For my 16th birthday, he put a giant subwoofer and speakers in the trunk. So here I am in this classic tricked out Mercedes that's just all really old and beautiful with this bumping system. And so that was the car that I first drove. But my first car that I bought when I was a teenager and I got to go through the we'll buy you a car thing for the people who are extraordinarily fortunate enough to have parents purchase their car. Christina said, oh, you can spend $25,000 and get a cute car like a Honda or a Jetta or something. Well, it was about 30 grand, but if I got it used, I could get a brand new Z28.
Right.
So I was like, 25 grand, I know what I want. And we went to the dealership. I got the dealer prep model. So it had 3,000 miles on it, but still got the financing because it was never registered. And it was the same blue that my Mercedes was, which is ironic.
Oh.
Or I guess coincidental. But this car, and I think I told you guys in the pre-show stuff, I don't really talk about her much because I consider my first car really Babs, which is my Trans Am. There's that whole story. But this was my first car. And I drove it everywhere. I drove the heck out of it. It's the car I got pulled over going 126 at gunpoint on the California highways. But we called her Christine because she had a temperament. And this car would only behave around certain people. And so if I wanted to break loose the rear end, no matter if I did a brake stand, I couldn't do it if she didn't want to do it. So she was like so temperamental. And when I left, I left her back in California when I went to New York to go modeling. She wouldn't start. She actually would not start from the day I left. And then they ended up having to sell the car because it was like, this car is dying. Refused. Nobody knows what happened. There was no reason for it. When I would go back to California, it started right up for me, but nobody else could drive her. So we called her Christine. And that's my first actual car that I had before I got my Trans Am.
Was Christine a stick shift?
No, she was an automatic.
Nope.
Yeah, she was.
That's okay.
Because see, I hadn't done the whole stick shift thing yet.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you. Stick shift in traffic, especially in California.
Well, it's not even so much the traffic thing. I don't mind that as much. As far as getting a car in manual transmission, that particular car, I got the one I could get. Because if I bought a new one, I would have gotten a manual transmission. But I had to get...
I gotcha.
My Trans Am, though, I desperately wanted a manual transmission. And I couldn't find one. I couldn't get one. I saw the ad in the paper, in the magazine, that said to a bug, it's a 320 horsepower blender. And I said, my God, I need this car. That is the most gorgeous car I've ever seen in my life. And that would have been 1997, 98. And so the internet wasn't a thing. And I couldn't just go look one up. And they shipped, the year I bought her, there was 2,700 made, unlike the years after where they made about 10, 15,000. So this particular model was very special edition, very limited run, and they shipped almost all of them to Florida and California. And I was in New York. So I called every dealership on the Eastern Seaboard. And nobody had one in black manual, but I could get a silver convertible manual or a white manual T-tops. And I would not drive a convertible because they were governed, and I didn't want a white car. So I went to my dad and I said, Dad, please, I need your help. Do you know any Pontiac dealers that could get me this car?
He probably did.
If there was a guy who gives you the name of a Pontiac dealer, it would be your dad. Yeah, fantastic.
So he called one of his old dealers in Akron, Ohio. And I drove from New Jersey to Ohio, which is exactly the break-in. So it's 500 miles. So I drove from New Jersey to Ohio and I picked up the car, but I had to get still an automatic because nobody had a black in manual transmission. And I didn't want a white car. I would have taken a silver manual transmission with T-tops, but not a convertible. So I drove the car home 55 miles an hour, all 500 break-in miles.
You're a liar. Total liar. Is that true?
100% true. And because I drove out there with...
She is an engineer.
Because I drove out there with friends who had to follow me, they were not happy. But the car got home and I drove it up the driveway and my dad came out. Again, this is a story I tell all the time. He came out and he looked at the car. I parked it with the door open and the hood up. And he walked around the car like a proud papa. And then he sat in the car and he looked at me and he said, I named this car. Did you know that? I did not know what that whole scene meant until this past year. One, it never occurred to me that the first car I bought with my own money was a Pontiac and that had to make my dad happy. Never occurred to me until somebody pointed it out.
Yeah.
Not sure why, but that.
Awesome coincidence. Awesome. Well played.
But his words were interesting to me. Why would you look at me and say, I named this car? You made this car. No, he didn't. It was his consolation prize for Chevrolet stealing the Banshee. They took the Banshee from him and they let him rebadge a Camaro. So he had nothing to do with it but rebadging. But that's also not true. Anybody who knows anything about the F-bodies back in the day and the F-body shootout and the Camaro versus Trans Am, you know the Trans Am's just a little bit better. Always. He put better suspension on the Pontiac to just, I mean, I could be crude but basically stick it to Chevrolet for what they did to him for stealing the Banshee. So that's my Babs. And that's how she was found and purchased and brought home and why I consider her John DeLorean's Firebird Trans Am.
And she is still with you, Babs, correct?
Sort of. She's not in running condition yet. She was restored by my hopefully son-in-law.
Yes, I think I read that. Your future son-in-law.
Yeah. It's just she needs a little bit. She needs a couple body panels and her brakes mostly done, but she's not back on the road yet.
Nice. And if I remember correctly, that is the big thing on that WS6 package was the ram air, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Yep. So the big bump in the hood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You either loved it or you hated it.
Beautiful car. And did you say it had T-tops? I think you did.
Yes, definitely T-tops.
Awesome. Yep, love it. And even though this is a family show, what does BAB stand for? You can say it. We'll bleep it if it's really bad.
It's my badass bitch.
Nice.
Yeah. I was a teenager, sort of, still, when I got her. So, I mean, but she is definitely, that car is mean. I love that car.
You know what else is badass? And I'm just going to throw this out there. You can confirm, deny, or just wink and we'll move along. But how about a Harley-Davidson edition Ford F-150?
How do you know
bring
about
anything
that
to mind
car?
too?
How do you...
Look, our research staff here is so deep. We have phalanxes of lawyers and fact checkers. Not really. It's just us. But and before you say anything, I have to chip in here. I know a guy who was a Harley nut, and you meet this guy, and every stitch of clothing is Harley Davidson on this fella. Actually, I don't know if his underwear is, but everything outwardly is. The shirt, the gloves, the jackets, the shirts, everything he wears. His commitment to the brand and to the culture is absolute. So when I saw that, I just wanted to throw that out to you and see if you could say a few words about that. Or
that's a special car. No, that's a special car.
That's a badass truck, frankly. B-A-T.
So that truck, I'll tell you something I've never told anybody before, I don't think.
Ooh, scoop.
I believe so. When I bought that car, my dad gave me just I only got a very tiny inheritance, a very small one, less than 6 figures. And I mean, that's a lot. Most people get nothing, but he gave this to me and he's like, I'm sorry, this is what you get. If you go spend it on a car, I'm going to disown you.
Boom.
John DeLorean says that to his daughter.
No, because he knew me. Because I took that check immediately to the Ford dealership and I bought that truck in cash. I did not listen to him. I went right down and I bought this. So for those who don't know, the Harley-Davidson F-150 was a Ford Lightning pickup truck that was super fast and really fun to drive. Absolutely gorgeous. And the one that I had custom leather interior that was black and silver to match the paint job on the car. It had custom taillights and a tonneau cover and video players in the seats, everything. It was totally tricked out. I love this car. We ended up selling her when we moved to Texas. We needed to get a bigger truck, and I didn't want to sell the truck at all, but I needed an F-250. And so the person I sold it to a gentleman named Bill, who I still talk to and know, and with a contract that says, if you ever sell this car, you have to sell it back to me for the price I sold it to you for. Meaning I'll still pay him what he paid 10 years ago, knowing that it would be worth a lot more, right? But this car is super special because it's the truck I got married in.
Yes.
My husband, his dream wedding was a drive-through. I want to have a wedding at 20 years. I don't want to start off my marriage in debt. I don't want to do this whole big party. I want to celebrate surviving with you, not let's have the party at the beginning. Hooray. So his dream wedding was a drive-through. His parents are like, nobody's ever going to do that. You'll never find a girl who would do that. I was like, I don't care. Let's go. Let's just go. So we got in the truck and we drove to Vegas, and my Polaroid is a wedding Polaroid in the Ford F-150 Harley Davidson edition, seatbelt and all.
That's the story.
For the Polaroid. Yes.
That car tells a story. Let me tell you. Thank you for sharing that. Well, partner, it's happened again. You know what's happened again? We have not even scratched the surface with Kat, and we are almost 29 minutes into this discussion. So, partner, I'm going to hand the baton to you and see if you have any closing thoughts, questions, observations for Kat, and then we'll let her talk about things that are on her mind, and then we'll wrap up the show. What you got?
Yeah. So, as I've said, I'm a DeLorean owner, also a 1990 300ZX owner. Long, wonderful story about that car that I will share in a subsequent episode, but it's very special to me. The car I wanted in high school that my best friend, the one who got me into driving stick shifts in high school, owned. And he had one. He was an only child. He wrecked everything that he was given, very spoiled. And that car got me because, I don't know, it was 91. I was trying to figure out what I was going to do college-wise. Growing up around computers, I wanted to do anything but that. But I had this little unknown, not well-known thing in the 90s, ADHD amongst other things, probably some ASD, and I couldn't concentrate in college. So I went off and became a computer guy and got involved in Novell NetWare for those people in your 40s and above, learned ArcNet. And I forgot about that car until I was going through some rough times in my life, and I tried to find my friend, and I found out he had passed away. And then I started having, and I'm giving away too much, I started having dreams about that car again. I hadn't thought about that car in 30 years. Like, you don't see them every day. You might even see a Trans Am more often than a 300ZX. I don't know. But actually, I see more DeLoreans because I'm in a DeLorean club. Speaking of which, I did drive a DeLorean 5-speed with a V8 over the weekend. A friend of mine in the club. Wow. I just got to say, wow. And so, DeLorean, I'm talking to the daughter of the man, right? It's such a pleasure. And we're sharing all these great stories. So, yeah, with that.
Just look at the smile that's completely frozen on Doug's face. Oh, wait, I think Zoom just stopped working. So, moving along quickly. Kat, it has just been such a pleasure. Thank you for being gracious with your time. Fantastic guest. And I know there's a lot going on in your life, but would you like to tease anything you have coming up in the coming weeks and months? I know you had some things going on in summer. Would you like to share that?
Yes. Actually, so please follow me on Instagram is my main account because I'm a photographer and that's just what I like. And Facebook is what Facebook is. So at Kat DeLorean, anywhere you want to try and find me, you can look up Kat DeLorean and you'll find me. Please follow me and DeLorean Next Gen Motors. That's where you'll be able to keep up on what we're doing. We have some very exciting new things that are going to be announced and launched this month. And then we have a very exciting project that we're working on with our students for the summer that we'll be announcing in the next coming months. I will be doing a SEMA virtual education seminar that's currently scheduled for the end of April, but I may be moving to May. So please go onto the SEMA Learning website and check out and register for my virtual seminar. Besides that, please reach out to me. If you want to schedule me for anything, do it via email, but I do try and answer my DMs. I love that I have the superpower of joy to just give you guys a smile by responding to you. So please do it. It takes me a while to get back to you, but sometimes people like that 4 months after they sent me a message, they get a surprise hello. So that's it. Thank you very much for everybody following me and supporting me. I love talking to you all and sharing these stories. It's really a lot of fun.
Well, thank you. And you are welcome here anytime. And so to our audience, what can we say? Another one in the books here. Check us out at carslove.com, carslove.com. Remember, every car has a story. This podcast only moves forward because you choose to share. Check us out at Christian@carslove.com. He's Doug at carslove.com. And we're streaming all over the place. Have we propagated the entire internet yet, partner? How's that working? You can find us on, I listen through Apple Podcasts, but really we're everywhere else, right? Your podcast platform of choice.
Yeah, Apple, Spotify, Google.
You know where to get us.
Amazon, Intune. Yes. We're on all the big ones and even the little guys.
Definitely. So, all right. So our audio engineer is going to take us out on some cool sounds and some great music. Thanks again, everybody. We'll see you next week. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.